Hey all, Board Game Rants here. We'll find everything solo, tabletop gaming, and more. June's MVP show coming right up. How did I fare after such a slow start? Gonna find out. Okay, so at the end of the show is going to be the big drawing. It's going to be a drawing of the people who did comment down below. I've got the coaster that I was going to send you. This guy right here. Goodness, I'm glad I held on to that. I almost threw it across the freaking room, and that would have ended that giveaway. Anyway, this guy. Gonna sign it on the back right in front of y'all. Gonna draw right in front of y'all the names that qualified. And really, if you commented below, I ended up putting you in the drawing because most of you did comment on what I was hoping you would, and etc. I just appreciate you saying something over last month's show, and so you're in the drawing. Let's continue on to why we're here, which is to find out what the heck we've been playing. What's this solo guy been playing? Well, as you recall, it was a very busy last month, and it took me a number of days just to finally get to actually record the show. And this time, it's, I'm right on track here. This is the 1st of June, and I'm on it. So, how many games did I play? I started I was on the 4th of the month, and I played 2 games. What did I end up at? 71 game sessions. Can you believe it? There's a secret to this. There's a little trick I found out. When you just don't have quite the time you'd like to play the games you'd like, this is how you make it work. Anyway, across 12 different games did I play. So we'll bust through the normal ones that I typically play with family on particular nights. There was Pinochle for 3, Uno, 4 games of that, 7 or no's, baby. It's the only way to play Uno anymore. I played a game called Lanterns. Lanterns is a tile lane set collecting kind of game. Just played it once with others. It's a pretty straightforward game about setting out, it's very colorful as you put out the tiles, and you've got these lanterns that, as you place the tiles, you get to collect cards, and in those cards, you're trying to collect sets and score points. It's pretty straightforward. It's an okay game, but just, I would only play it with others, and only if I kind of had to. It's just like it depends on who the group I'm playing with, if it fits or not. This one's pretty universally pretty easy, and people seem to like it. Played Hanabi. Now that's one I haven't talked about either. Hanabi is a card game. It is you hold your cards, and it's cooperative, and it's kind of a generic theme that you're building fireworks together. But really, there's just 4 colored cards, numbered 1 through 5, and you're trying to put them down in order, 1 through 5, all 4 different colors, which represent your fireworks display. Whatever. But the interesting part of it is, as you draw your cards and you have your hand of cards, you have the back of the card is facing you, and the front of the cards are facing the people you're playing with. So they can see, if you're playing with 4 people, you can see 3 people's hands, and you can't see your own. And you try to give each other's clues on the colors of the cards that they have in their hand and the numbers that they have in their hand, but you have to do it in a certain way. And eventually, because you only get so many clues before you just got to start laying down cards and hope you're putting them down right, because then, the firework display could go off prematurely or whatever, and you just score fewer points. It's a very cool game. It's a cooperative game that really anybody can pick up on. I highly recommend it, but again, it's not a solo game. Moving on, The Mind. Played 2 games of that. I've raved about this game, playing it with my core 4. We hadn't played it in a while. When you play with 4 people, you got to play 8 rounds. And each round you have another card in your hand to add to and actually go through. Well, the first one, we were rusty. The first game, we only made it to the 7th round, and before we died. Played it again, and if you know anything about the game, when you play with 4 players, you start with 4 lives and 1 star. And we got to the 8th round, the final round, where if you win, you win. If you play all those cards, you win the game. We got to the 8th round with 4 lives and 1 star. We were kicking ass, and we got a little cocky. We started playing. We lost lives, a couple real quick, and then dug in our haunches and pulled out the victory there. But The Mind, what a great family game that one is. Shadowrun Crossfire, another one. So these are all games that I played multiplayer. Shadowrun Crossfire, you can play solo. but it's just I just think it's way more fun. It's a cooperative game. I've talked a lot about that, but got a couple of plays of that in. Mansions of Madness. That was a newer one that I just picked up and played that multiplayer. You can play it solo, but it's just not, it just isn't my style of solo game because there's so much story to it. You really want to just play it with people, and it's an app-driven, Cthulhu-based, Lovecraft type story, and you investigators go in this mansion and all sorts of creatures come out, and you got to solve clues and put together puzzles, and it's pretty fun. But we only played it once, and then that was it. That's all. I played it just with there's 4 of us, and it's a good game, but again, not one that I probably play solo because it's just doesn't. I'm not too much into story stuff when I'm playing solo. I just kind of want to know, did I take damage? Did I not? How much damage did I do? Do I level up? Do I, I just like quick and snappy stuff, and all the story flavor stuff is cool, but really only to a certain point. And that app really wants to draw you in. And as a group, it's fun, but as solo, it's probably not something that I would particularly enjoy solo. Anyway, that was Mansions of Madness. Cerebria, played a game of that. It was kind of near, it was right at the beginning of the month. Just squeezed in one last game of that before I put it away. That was, last month's MVP. Zaya. Played that one more time before I set it off to the side. It's still on my table. I still want to play it more, but as you will find out, a game took over. Gloomhaven. Played Gloomhaven. And just played it twice, and that game is still set up, right behind me, kind of a bit of it, and then the other bit is over there, and that is, it's Gloomhaven. I love playing Gloomhaven. I pretty much don't like anything outside of the actual play. I'm just sick of it, all the setup and everything it takes, but the gameplay is just like no other, and so that will always have me kind of hooked and intrigued, but I did find the game that fits me, and I'm getting to it. But first, the surprise of the month for me was a game that is I don't know what to call it because it's my own game. I made a game. It was like, I don't know, it was over 5 years ago. It wasn't quite 10 years ago, I think. And I was really into it when I made it. And a friend of mine made these boards. I mean, really intricate, kick-ass looking, all wood. I mean, he's really good woodworking guy. And anyway, I don't want to go over too much about what the game is about. I designed it to be a 2-player game. A key mechanic on how to play it solo just popped in there, and I was fiddling with it and experimenting with it. And it was surprising that the game still has a pull for me, even as I've grown in my tastes in games and whatnot. It's still kind of, somewhat relevant. And so I found that kind of surprising and, in a good way, I guess. It's nice to not have created something that I deem irrelevant. I don't know. So what's the most disappointing part of the month? Well, again, it's not a game so much as I didn't have any luck, like looking up games that I'm interested in. I went to my FLGS a number of times and stuff popped up and I looked at it and it was just kind of like, eh. And I mean, there's no must-haves this last month at all that I could find. I went on Board Game Geek and I looked and I couldn't find anything there that just grabbed me. And it was just kind of a dull month along those lines. And then of the games that I'm looking forward to, they're the Kickstarter games. They're all running late. Everything is just running late. And I ranted about that last month. That's just disappointing. It was just kind of a disappointing month for looking for solo games for me. There was just nothing out there that usually I can go on one of the weeks. I'll go and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I remember looking for this game and maybe I saw it on Kickstarter a year and a half ago or something and here it is, and nothing like that at all this month. And that was kind of surprising. So just a slow solo tabletop gaming month for me. Anybody got any, like, oh man, you should check this out, pick it up. But before we get to that, let's talk about the MVP. Now this game, if you go through the number of plays in the 11 games I just went over there, it comes up to 22 games there. And I played 71 sessions. So that means that I played a particular game 49 frickin' times. Unheard of. And that is the City of Kings. City of Kings, I believe I showed that I had on last month's show, and I opened it up, and it has not left my table since. And when you have a busy month like I did, where gaming is just like the time is at a premium, one of the best ways to get in a bunch of plays is to just never take down a game. So you'll notice that I had Cerebria and Zaya and these other games that I put out and played really quick and then put away. Those are the only games that showed up on my game table besides the City of Kings. And the City of Kings came out. Holy moly. Let me just show you a little bit of what it's about here. All right, the City of Kings in a nutshell here. This is a grand adventure game in which you're going to have a board that you explore. You're going to have your heroes here, and your heroes each have workers too, and you're going to explore across the land, and your heroes are going to be battling creatures, for instance. Your workers are going to be gathering up resources, among a bunch of other things. Kind of depends on what you're playing. And in this game, you have the option of playing either through a story, which is sort of a grand adventure game that plays out a little bit longer. It's made up of chapters, and each chapter has an objective that you have to accomplish, and you kind of go through, and it'll tell you when you win. Or you can play these little one-offs, these scenarios that are games in and of themselves that just kind of give you a setup, and then you flip it over to find out what you're supposed to do within that setup. Up here up top, you can see I've sleeved. You can go online on the site and you can download a whole bunch more free scenarios. There's like 20-something scenarios here. There's 7 stories that come with the game. Over here, you've got another set of stories, I think 3 each. There's 3 stories in each of the expansions, the character expansions that you can get. Once you have the expansion characters, you've got 10 different characters you can play, all with their different flavors, all with their different ways of leveling up. Here I've got, again, 2 of the expansion characters. And this one, in this particular story that I'm playing, I got to start with a certain number of skills. So you got this section is going to represent your character's skills. And then over here, you got an area that's going to represent the equipment they've purchased. And then up here is going to represent their stats, such as, how much health they have, how far they can move, how hard they hit when they attack. And then a little area here too that represents your workers and how fast they can move around, how quickly they can gather. And then down in the bottom right here keeps track of the actions that you've taken on a particular turn. And so this is one, and this particular story, I'm playing Story 5 on the base game, allows me to start with 4 different skills immediately. Before we even start the game, I get to level up this character, and it allowed me to move my stats up in 6 different places. And when I put these skill tokens down, sometimes those allow me to move up the stats as well. So already at the very beginning of the game, I'm modifying and building this character a certain way. I'm actually building this one in particular to be who's going to be doing my damage, essentially. So instead of a attack stat of 1, already up to 5, and I'm working up on the left side of this skill tree because the left side tends to have more attacky stuff, and the right side's more of a defensive healing side. And then over here, I have not done Yana's stuff yet. This is how a base character starts. This is how when you play like Story 1 or one of the first couple scenarios, your character just starts very generically with 4 health and 1 attack and 1 heal ability and just very base stats for everything. But I'm going to, according to this scenario, going to be able to build up, add 6 stats and add 4 skills. So I'll already at the beginning of the game be able to build up Yana in a certain way. I'm going to have her being mainly the healer and the one that just takes the damage, kind of the tank. And you can change that up every game. You can do it. Next game I might have vice versa. Over here you've got this is what you're gonna see out there on that board. There's gonna be curses thrown at you. There's gonna be fire spreading across the land, poison. You're gonna have to deal with frost slowing you down. You're gonna have to deal with attention tokens. You get too many attention tokens out there, it's gonna start drawing creatures to you. Then you got your different resources. You got stone. You got fish, wood. This represents linen. You can find parts and put together parts that allow you to buy things from the market. here at the old barn, this is where you're going to keep track of things as you bring your items back to the City of Kings here, represented by this little tile. You're going to be keeping track of how much of what you have in the old barn. And it's only stuff in your old barn that you can actually use to purchase stuff. And you're going to be fighting many different bad guys, and they're represented by these banners. You're gonna find these guys, and then those are gonna tell you, based on these tiles are gonna flip over. These are gonna tell you like what that creature comes with. It's gonna come with 2 green abilities and 1 yellow ability, and it's gonna have 12 health, and it's gonna hit for 5, and etc. etc. And they're gonna get tougher and tougher as you go down the stack. You're gonna start with 7 in this particular story and then work your way down to 8, 9, 10. They're going to get tougher and tougher as you go, and they're going to come out with totally different random abilities, like 50, 60 plus different abilities here. And it's going to be crazy. It's going to be fun. That's the City of Kings in just a quick little roundup fashion. Didn't even go over all the quests that you can go on in that game. As you explore that world, there's certain areas that you can draw quests from, and those quests are just all over the board. Sometimes they spawn creatures. Sometimes they have you trying to escort people across the land. Sometimes they give you certain resources you got to go gather and bring back. City of Kings is, right now, I'll say it now, it's the best solo tabletop game I've played so far this year. And it was the adventure game I've been looking for that pretty much replaces Gloomhaven, because in almost all ways, except for just Gloomhaven still has those mechanics, and as you're playing it, and that puzzly thing, and the way it's done, that just can't really be beat, but it's close. This game, while it doesn't quite match that in gameplay for me, it has its own set of juiciness as you're playing it that I absolutely love. And the fact that you can set up games so quickly and tear them down, and you can play different types of games that focus on battling creatures, or you can focus on scenarios that have you gathering, even stories, have you more focusing on gathering resources and building structures. And there's so much to this game. You can go on quests and you can level up that way, or you can go fight creatures and level up that way. There's different ways that you can level your characters up. You have this very cool video game vibe to it that is like Diablo or StarCraft or Borderlands, where, well, to Diablo and Borderlands, like that skill tree idea where you can get this skill, but then from this skill you can't go over this direction. Then very easily you have to kind of follow a certain path, and then workers are what really add to the StarCraft Command and Conquer old video game kind of thing feeling, because your workers are going out and they're grabbing materials, and then you got to bring them back to the City of Kings. So they're like these little peons. They got to run out, they gather resources, and you got to bring them back to the City of Kings for refinement, if you will. So the resources all have like 2 stages of them. You can't just go out and use raw resources. It's not enough that your workers just go out and grab them. You've got to bring them back to the City of Kings, put them in the old barn, then you can actually use them for something. So there's like 2 levels of the 4 different types of resources in that way. And I love that it just seamlessly fits together within your turn as you're looking to control your hero and do certain things, and control your workers and do certain things. And then the expansions add pets that you can bring in, and those pets you can use for various things. And they also add ways that there's elements that come out on the board, like fire and ice and poison. And there's characters that can actually utilize within their skill sets, because each hero has its own different skill set. And there's 10 different characters if you have all the expansions. And so each of them can have their own different flavor to them. It's a little bit like Too Many Bones in that sense, but maybe not as different as Too Many Bones, but it does totally remind me of that with the skill trees of Too Many Bones, that you can build your characters, and each one is very, very different. And you can build them to be kind of well, actually, the characters in Too Many Bones, actually, some are kind of designed to be tanks, and some are designed to be the ones that do the damage. But in the City of Kings, you can actually build your guys to really just in all sorts of different ways. And I love the expansion characters. Those really add the different ways that you can build and experience the game. And that is, you've got one that actually takes advantage of and can create elements on the board, a little bit Gloomhaven like, those elements that'll come out and then they start waning as time. There's a little tracker that goes around, and as it hits certain symbols, those poison one time, and then ice the other time, and then fire the other time, so all start to wane. But if you can and they slow you down, or they do damage, or they do kind of just constant damage that you actually put on your board, whereas fire always stays on the board, and as you run through it, it hurts you. It also hurts the monsters, so the creatures that are out there damaging, spewing out poison, but then running through it and hurting themselves, or fire, and it's craziness, but it's so well put together that the fiddliest thing would be just all the different abilities, and just trying to learn all the different abilities that the creatures can come out, because the creatures come out totally random, and they've just got all sorts of stuff. You can have one that's spitting out poison and moving all over the place and gathering your workers to it and locking them up in that way one game, and then that same creature is just throwing out fire lances and staying put and calling out its minions to run around the board and either strengthen it or lock down your workers. Or it's just, there's so many different little abilities that it can, in the beginning, be a bit much as you're learning them. But after you've played, damn near 50 times, it's and I still haven't. The red abilities, the hard abilities, I haven't had too much experience with. I've seen the greens many times, the yellows a number of times, and the greens are your easy abilities, the yellows are your medium difficulty abilities, and the reds are your hard abilities that the creatures can come out with. But for my 50th game, and I just finished it this morning, I played the Grand Pumbaa, the Foolish Errand, or whatever the scenario is. You can download it online. It has you using all of the tiles, and you basically start from scratch, and your mission is just to go across the land, expose all the tiles, and defeat all the creatures. I got to it says, it warns you, it could take 6 to 12 hours. That must be when you're playing with multiplayers, or like 4 people or something, because I played, it was probably 3 to 4 hours altogether. And I exposed all of the tiles and killed most of it. There was 3 creatures left, and I really had no chance to defeat them. But that's how you would win that scenario. And plays snappy in the beginning. It's very quick because there's not much as you grow. Then you start getting gear and stuff, and really ramping up, and your decisions become much more involved as you're trying to piece out how you're gonna go at a certain creature, for instance, because the creature and its certain abilities might have you. One of the cool things is you can have your workers go out and build camps, and they can build barracks, and they can build traps that you can set out on the board and try and get the creatures to hit the traps. Or you can, as long as you're placed on a tile that has a barrack, you can absorb damage when that creature attacks you. Or if you're at a camp, you can revitalize yourself, get all your health back, which is all dependent on the level that you're on. And the way things level up, you all level up together, which is an awesome element of this game, and I love it very much, in that your characters just grow basically in matched strength in their own ways, but in matched strengths. They grow together at the same time, and so you don't have this kind of off balance in the game. And the game has really just a completed feel. Each time you're done, you're done. And then in one of the complaints about the game that I hear a lot of is people saying that you always start the same way, and each character is the same essentially, and you've got 4 life, and you've got 1 attack and 1 heal, but you don't. I mean, with the first couple introductory scenarios you do, and the first story you do, but as you go through the game, I mean, you need to know these things, and you need to learn how to level yourself up before you just start a game leveled up. And most of the scenarios and stories later on allow you to start the game leveled up, so you can immediately, before you even start your game, give them some skills, give them some increased stats, and build your characters very differently right from the get-go. And so over and over, I saw this criticism, and it's just, I mean, they obviously haven't played the game very much, because I don't think they would have given it that criticism anymore. Another thing too is just the randomized monsters. It's a little crazy, yes, but people, and it seemed weird to me too. You get a monster, it doesn't, you might think the monster looks like it's going to specialize in poison, but it just might not at all. And so randomness of the creature creation, the monster creation gets to people. I love it. It's different. It's just so different. And yes, I mean, there's something to be said about, oh, this style of creature comes out and it's going to use fire. This style of creature just heals like a son of a gun. This style of creature, you know, and so there's some predictability in there. I prefer it without predictability. I just love the insanity of, and how the insanity I should get of the abilities that come out. You just never know what that monster is going to be able to do. But they ramp up very steadily. They just keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So you know, that is a guarantee. You know, it's so, and there's some predictability in that, but you just never know what the creature's abilities are going to come out with, and that drives people crazy. For me, I don't know. It's just stylistically, I love it, and it's one of the high notes for me in the game. The reason why I didn't pick up this game to begin with is because I just didn't care much for the way it looked. And I thought it was the biggest thing that's weird about the game to me is how it handles line of sight and range. It's just across tiles that represent huge forests and monstrous structures and grand lakes. And then there's a tile that represents a pit, which must be a pretty small representation. But apparently that tile is just as grand and as big as this huge forest that you can get lost in. I don't know. And then your range is basically across the world. So you can just somehow hit somebody from 6 tiles away. And you can reflect damage back at them from, 6 tiles away. Like the other side of the world, you're battling, and it just seems weird. And the line of sight is just straight up or straight left or right. There's no diagonals to range or line of sight. Well, there is to line of sight. If you are in a diagonal, if you're not in the direct left, right, up, down path of a creature, you are not within its sight. It cannot see you. So you can just hide, just right around me. It can hit you from across the world, but if you just hide around the corner, can't see you. Which, that was difficult for me to accept and, thematically, but the thing that it does, and here's why it makes up for it, is because it gets rid of all the crazy line of sight rules, and it gets rid of all the fact needed to address all the, from here to, if you can draw a line from this tile to this tile without touching the corner or going parallel with the wall or blah, 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 blah. You can see over these things. You can't see over these things, etc., etc. Like Gloomhaven and like so many other games that have all these line of sight and range rules. You can't see around corners. If there's a certain, all the little intricacies that typical range and line of sight have that make it more realistic. It comes at the expense of all of these fringe cases and having to look up, well, can it see me now? Can I see it now? Here, none of that. It's just so straightforward with just this line of sight, left and right, up and down, a certain number of tiles. And if you're not in there, can't be attacked, and you can't attack it. It so streamlines the game that I love it, and because it is one of my least favorite things to have to look up. It just bogs the game down. This game, no bogging down when it comes to range and line of sight. So that's the City of Kings. Quick little tidbits on kind of what I'm looking forward to next month. Digging into First Martians. I have been watching some videos. I've been reading the rule book. It seems like my kind of game. It is an app-driven game that got a lot of flack when it first came out. It was the same guy that did Robinson Crusoe, which is a mega, mega popular game. I loved that game. I even have the expansion of that game, and I haven't played all the way through it. But fantastic design, but it just got wasted with criticisms. And but since then, I think the app has been streamlined and updated, so it works better. Summaries have come out to help you understand the game faster. And as I've been watching, it doesn't seem like overly complicated. The other games that I saw that just kind of had me thinking like, I don't know, maybe it's worth looking into, because they had official solo variants too, are Gugong and Gentes, I think. And that I saw this, that was the only ones, and they didn't want like, oh my gosh, I gotta have it. It was just they seemed kind of interesting Euro games. What is it, Dungeon Alliance, the expansion coming out, which now it's so late. Now I have the City of Kings. I just don't see it. I have a feeling I'm just going to be disappointed when Dungeon Alliance comes out with the expansion. Just because I'm already just bogged down with the fact that all of these Kickstarters just come out late and late and late. There's 2-3 other games that have Kickstarted that are supposed to be here now or this coming month. They're all reporting like months late, and it's just I'm just sick of it. Let's get to it. let's get to the drawing, shall we? Let's get to the cup. So I got this cup here. I'm going to be mixing it up. These are the names of the people that showed up there on the bottom of the commented on last month's video. And who am I going to send my coveted doohickey, my coaster, my coffee stain stopper? It is. You see that? Focus. David Arlington. David, thank you. I get to send you this guy. This guy. I'm going to write down. Okay, I'm going to show it. We're going to do it right here too. Make it super authentic. Right. I'm going to use this purple. And we're going to add a little. We're going to go with, we'll just do what? BGR? How about that? Oh my goodness. This is very, very light. I'll do the green in the middle. We'll do a little R right there. Give me a G. Oh boy, that is not a very good dark G. And oh, there you go. It's a little darker. BGR. That is the show for this month. Thank you for watching. David, please let me know how I can get your info. Maybe I'll put my email down in the notes below, or maybe I'll put it across the screen, or Board Game Geek. Actually, that would probably work, right? You can find me there and get me where to send the gizmo to. I will get that to you pronto. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you for watching. The viewership of this channel just keeps going up. And in relation to that, about 50% of you are watching this show, which is my favorite to do, where I just kind of get to talk about games and sort of loose leaf review them. And until next time, on Board Game Rants, thank you for joining me. I'm out.